Well, in the ongoing battle to legalize weed, actually, it is a battle, and this is the appropriate attire, the weed uniform and the C-151 Jeep to go through the battlefield. Because, well, anyway, what's going on in the battle to legalize weed, and there's the most opposition, not surprisingly, is coming from the pharmaceutical companies. They're making billions of dollars off of painkillers, and police unions are also the other big heavy hitter in a fight against marijuana legalization. It's like they are benefiting in different ways, actually. It's a little odd that the Community of Anti-Drug Coalition of America and other groups leading the fight against relaxing marijuana laws, include the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids, derive a significant portion of their budget from the manufacturers of and the pharmaceutical companies and the manufacturers of painkillers. So they don't want weed legalized because it's a good painkiller. So this is actually illegal growing of the crop, and it's coming on heavy and strong, and it's due to the fight from the people. But there's a lot of disinformation out there, and they're still pushing that weed is a gateway drug. Now, actually, what they've been finding out, what is a real gateway drug, is actually pharmaceutical meds. There's a growing problem with heroin use, but it's nowhere near the problem with prescription medicine abuse. But the heroin abusers are actually being introduced into it from the prescription meds versus weed. And, the other point that's going on, first off, in 1937, when they passed that Cannabis Stamp Tax Act, it was actually the AMA that was vehemently against it because most of the medicines had cannabis in them at the time. Now they found other profitable, funny little pills to peddle, and it's like they don't want any of their profits cut into, so they are doing everything they possibly can to slow down medical marijuana. Now, the other front is actually coming from the police. Protect and serve. Sometimes I look at this and say to protect and serve who? The people or their interests? Because anytime something becomes a government, actually corruption always floats to the top. You might find, I don't know, it's a mixed bag with the police. You don't all know. It could be really good and really bad. That's the way it is. But actually, police unions are also fighting the legalization of marijuana because actually they're getting a lot of their funding from the war on drugs, which includes marijuana. So if they don't have the funding for the war on drugs for marijuana, they lose money, right? I mean, it's simple as hell, right? Simple deduction. They will lose money if marijuana is legal because they won't have something to fight. And, it's to protect and serve. So the police unions are against this, and they have lobbied for harsher penalties for marijuana-related crimes, quote unquote, or marijuana use or whatever it is. Maybe it's not a crime in a real sense. There's been instances where a father has protected and made his infant son survive with the use of medical marijuana oil, and it was illegal, and he got in big trouble for that. So who is it to protect and serve, right? I have to put this out here because, government is supposed to protect us and we serve them and they serve us, but they become their own little interest after a while. City of Los Angeles, a good example of police gone bad in many instances, right? So anyway, the pharmaceutical industry is actually looking to keep their funny colored pills moving along in revenue stream, and they're doing everything possible they can to lobby against painkillers from, say, marijuana or any kind of other therapy that actually can go much farther, like Rick Simpson talked about, the marijuana oil healing cancer. But it is a real fight to actually get this stuff legal. And what's going on is they're throwing loads and loads and loads and loads of disinformation out there, because what they're saying is that marijuana is a gateway drug, and look at the incidence of heroin going up. And I have to repeat this again because it bears emphasis, that actually heroin usage is going up because the actual gateway drug is actually the abuse of prescription medicines, prescription medicines used as painkillers. And it's not that they're actually getting them illegally because somebody's prescribing them, because it's profitable for them to prescribe them. So that's actually turning out to be the main gateway drug to heroin. But actually, if you look at the number of deaths that have occurred from prescription drugs to compare to illicit drugs, it's almost like unbelievably different. There's been many times more people that have abused prescription pills. Actually, it's almost 7 million during the course of 1 month, while actually only 300,000 have actually used heroin. And the prescription pills, again, I have to say that is actually the gateway drug to actually the use of heroin. So, it's a big racket by the powers that be, which is the medical establishment, and even the police, unfortunately, because when you come into the union, the police unions, they want to have their funding for the war on drugs. And if you don't have a war on the main drug being supposedly marijuana, and this is so ludicrous because marijuana, or cannabis, let's even refer to it at the proper name, cannabis has been used in almost every single medicine back in, not in different quantities, but it was pretty much one of the ingredients in pretty much every single medicinal concoction that was in the 1800s and the early 1900s. And it was the AMA that was actually vehemently against the Cannabis Stamp Tax Acts of 1937. They were the biggest lobbyer against it. And actually, Mayor LaGuardia from New York City at the time actually realized what was going on. And, it's like, but, you can't have too few people fighting the power. You got to have enough people to do it. And it is an uphill battle. So, I'm not even a weed smoker, but I'm a big advocate of this medicinal marijuana because it's quite obvious what it's good for. And actually, the oil should be very available. And actually, the herbs should be available, I think, in supermarkets everywhere, where you can just buy it as something you could sprinkle on food as a condiment. So, but it's not going to be in the near future. And we got a lot of problems coming up still with the pharmaceutical industry and them spreading lies that it's a gateway drug. The police unions, again, they're lobbying against it. It leads to crime, and I don't know. I mean, people are unfamiliar with this, and I personally am unfamiliar with weed because I don't smoke the stuff at all. But the thing is, people are unfamiliar with this. They're going to be believing these staunch advocates because, I've been in law enforcement for 30 years and I've seen this and that. Oh, I've been a doctor for so long, and oh, yeah. And they have all the credentials in the world. So what do people believe? But you know what you have to believe? You got to go back to ancient times. And cannabis has been used as a medicine all throughout all cultures, all throughout the ages. So it's something not to be ignored and shoved under the rug because pharmaceutical wants to keep their profits up and sell their funny colored pills because they really are going to get a big bite in a pocketbook when it comes to their funny colored pills, because if cannabis really becomes legal in all 50 states of the United States, there's going to be a major downtrend in revenue for painkillers from the pharmaceutical industry, and they recognize this, and there's going to be a major defunding of the war on drugs. And it's nonsense. They're just wasting their money, and they're screwing over private citizens that aren't doing anything wrong in any fashion. This whole concocted marijuana tax stamped act actually came from the biggest money in the world that was just, realized that if hemp was, hemp, it turned out it actually originated, let me just put it this way, it wasn't even from the medical standpoint. It was actually that there was new type of machinery that can actually separate the hemp fibers more efficiently. And it was predicted that hemp would be the most profitable agricultural product going, and it would replace a lot in the oil industry as envisioned by Henry Ford. Rudolph Diesel with the diesel engine. His engine was actually designed to be run on hemp oil, but it was a laborious process to actually produce to to get the fibers out of the plant to make the materials you need for, you know, the oils and actually the fibers for structures with resins, mixed with resins. But there was new machinery that was coming out at the time in 1937, and DuPont, Rockefeller, Hearst, and everybody else that was involved in the oil industry or the paper pulp industry realized this. It wasn't actually from the aspect of the medical industry, and they moved to make it illegal with the marijuana, the Cannabis Stamp Act, the Marijuana Stamp Tax Act of 1937, by making rumors that Mexican drug cartels were raping white women and they were using cannabis to do this to the people in the United States and all this other garbage. It was a bunch of made-up lies that was pushed into major newspapers. But just as then and as is today, there's major lies coming about where the pharmaceutical industry is telling you it's a gateway drug. The police are saying it's dangerous because it's harmful to society and all this type of stuff. They got major financial interests. They're each protecting. And like I said, I got no skin in this game on marijuana. I don't sell this stuff. I'm not involved in the industry. I'm not invested in the industry. I don't smoke the stuff. I don't use the stuff in any way. But I realize it's a righteous cause, and I just want to alert people to what the angles are of what the powers that be, that are what their games really, really are. Because if people wake, you know, it doesn't take much thought to actually see what the game is.